All right, Kayleigh McEnany. Great job.
Thank you,
Great
Sean.
show. And thank you. And hello, New York. How are you? Welcome to Hannity. We got a rowdy crowd tonight in the live studio audience. Tonight, somewhere in America, Hunter Biden is celebrating Christmas come early for the reformed crackhead. He will not spend a single day in jail. Not one day. Can you believe it? After striking that sweetheart deal with his daddy's DOJ. How convenient. Anyway, meanwhile, Hunter's child support payments, remember the little girl in Arkansas, innocent 4-year-old little girl, that he and Joe and Jill Biden have completely abandoned? Well, anyway, the child care payments were reduced, a reported 75%. And the girl does not get to take her dad's name, which might be a blessing in disguise. So congrats to the Bidens. We know that they're probably overjoyed tonight. But one day, Joe and Jill Biden's granddaughter will know that her grandfather was the president of the United States and completely abandoned and disowned her. We'll get to that. And coming up, we're going to hear from the attorney representing rapper Kodak Black, who was sentenced to more than 3 years in prison. He was charged with the same federal weapons crime as zero experience Hunter Biden, 46 months in jail. He also, by the way, will hear from John Solomon. He has exclusive new details from the IRS whistleblower who accused the feds of giving Hunter preferential treatment. But first tonight, we begin with the blockbuster testimony of special counsel John Durham. Way too late and too few indictments. But anyway, he was on Capitol Hill today, delivering some much-needed truth to the tinfoil hat liars and collusion truthers that never happened in the Democratic Party. And, of course, their willing accomplices in the media mob. They were the ones peddling lies to you in this country for 3 years, and some of them even getting Pulitzer Prizes as a result. Now, first up is the congenital liar himself, Adam Schiff. Now, this was interesting today. He couldn't believe that a foreign government would actually call up an American citizen and offer dirt on a political opponent. And I'm like, really, Adam? Because Adam Schiff is the only one in America that actually talked to somebody that he believed to be a Russian. It was a Russian prankster. Guess what? We got the tape. Listen.
Don Jr. was informed that a Russian official was offering the Trump campaign, quote, very high-level and sensitive information, unquote, that would be incriminating if Hillary Clinton was part of, quote, Russia and its government support of Mr. Trump. Are you aware of that?
Sure. People get phone calls all the time from individuals who claim to have information like that.
Really, the son of a presidential candidate gets calls all the time from a foreign government offering dirt on their opponent? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think this is unique in your experience.
She met with Trump and she brought him 1-hour Russian girl, celebrity, Olga Buzova, who also known as a person with a strange reputation.
Olga, and how do you spell her name?
Olga Buzova.
And what's the nature of the compromise?
Well, there were pictures of naked Trump.
You said that it's not uncommon to get offers of help from a hostile foreign government in a presidential campaign directed at the president's son. You really stand by that, Mr. Durham?
I'm saying that people can make phone calls making claims all the time that you may have experienced.
And so Putin was made aware of the availability of the compromising material?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. We will be back in touch with you through our staff to make arrangements to obtain these materials for our committee and for the FBI, and I appreciate you reaching out to us.
Let me explain. That was Adam Schiff being pranked by somebody he believes to be a Russian, telling him and giving him compromising materials on Donald Trump. What was the nature of the compromising materials? Pictures of naked Trump. You have pictures of naked Trump? Does Vladimir know? But of course, Vladimir see the picture of naked Trump. You know. Adam Schiff, no shame. As it turns out, the collusion was coming from inside the House of Representatives. It was Schiff that was colluding with the Russians, digging up dirt on a presidential candidate, compromising materials on Donald Trump. But tonight, the good news is Adam Schiff has been formally censured by the House of Representatives, and Democrats They're not too happy. Let's take a look.
The yeas are 213 and the nays are 209. With 6 answering present, the resolution adopted. Without objection, the motion to consider is laid on the table. House will be in order.
Maybe Adam Schiff should stop getting compromising materials. Anyway, he's a serial liar, congenital liar, conspiracy theorist. He lied to this country for 3 long years, rightly censored on the House floor. And yet here we are in year 8 of the never-ending Trump-Russia collusion hoax and a far-fetched conspiracy theory bought and paid for by Hillary Rodham Clinton, propagated by our federal government. Not one thing in her dirty disinformation Russian dossier was ever proven true. No real evidence of collusion or conspiracy. And in the words of Durham, Operation Crossfire Hurricane never, ever should have been opened. Take a look.
Mr. Durham, did you see evidence of collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign in 2016?
No.
So the American public that has been told this hoax for years, it was just that, a hoax. Is that correct?
Our investigation showed that there were a lot of failures in the FBI in how they did this investigation that did not disclose or reveal information or evidence concerning any conspiracy or collusion between Mr. Trump and Russian authorities.
Okay, then why did the FBI spend years on a hoax? 2 words, pure political, that's 3 words, political bias. They hated Donald Trump, were desperate to take him down. Take a look.
I have had any number of FBI agents who I've worked with over the years, some of them are retired, some are still in place, who have come to me and apologized for the manner in which that investigation was undertaken. I take that seriously. There were investigative activities undertaken or not undertaken here, which raise real concerns about whether or not the law was followed, the policies in place of the FBI were followed. There are some individuals who clearly expressed a personal bias.
Anti-Trump zealots at the FBI in their Washington field office were so desperate to get Donald Trump that they defrauded a FISA court when not one single item on that FISA application regarding the dossier was true or corroborated. Not one. James Comey signed 3 of them. Talk about a higher honor, Comey, really? And that was used then to ruin Carter Page's life, get into the Trump campaign, transition team, and the Trump White House. Take a look.
Several of the relevant FISA applications at issue in the Crossfire investigation omitted references to what was clearly relevant and highly exculpatory information that should have been disclosed to the FISA court. Multiple FBI personnel who signed or assisted in preparing renewal applications for that same FISA warrant acknowledged that they did not believe that the target, Mr. Page, was a threat to national security, much less a knowing agent of a foreign power, which is what the law requires. It appears from our investigation that the FBI leadership dismissed those concerns.
Turns out Carter Page was innocent and actually worked for a 3-letter agency and ended up being a patriot that often went to dangerous places and shared that intel with our own government. Now, despite the abuse, the bias, the corruption, the misconduct, there's been very few real consequences. They got away with their lies. They got away with lying to a FISA court 4 times. Virtually no reform, no accountability, not even an apology from the mob, the media, not even a correction, not even an I'm sorry, not even a here's your Pulitzer Prize back. It's way past time for a reckoning at your FBI. They've been politicized. They've been weaponized. Christopher Wray needs to go. The FBI's hyper-partisan, far-left Washington field office must be dismantled. The entire bureau, which used to be the premier law enforcement agency in the world, has got to be rehabilitated top to bottom, or we will no longer have equal justice or application in our laws under this country, and that means our Constitution is meaningless. That means the FBI, under both Comey and Wray, has sadly been weaponized and politicized, just like the Department of Justice. And since 2015, the Bureau threw cinder blocks on the scales of not 1, but 2 presidential elections. They pushed the Russia hoax. They pre-bunked the very true Hunter Biden laptop story that they had since December of 2019. And now they're obstructing Chairman Comer's investigation into Biden's alleged bribery scheme. They want to offer no assistance. And oddly enough, they still don't even seem interested in the contents of Hunter's laptop. Look at this. Hunter's very nervous-looking attorney, not the good one, Abby Lowell, who's a serious lawyer, who really did a good job on behalf of the Biden family. But the other lawyer said federal investigators never even brought up the contents in their 5-year investigation into Hunter's laptop. 4 of those years, they had the laptop. Take a look.
Do you have any idea if Hunter Biden's laptop had anything to do with this investigation? Was it used?
I don't. No, I don't. I mean,
were you ever asked about it?
I can't recall being asked about it, to be honest with you.
Republicans will say the laptop has tons of proof that there was that Hunter Biden participated in corruption, that there's financial proof that President Biden and Hunter Biden were connected in the gains that were made overseas by Hunter Biden. Have you ever seen any proof of that?
No, I know. I haven't seen anybody make an actual persuasive case that something was done. And, you know, you asked whether or not the subject of the laptop was part of the investigation. It's been out there. And, you know, we don't have any proof of it, that there was any kind of violation.
Excuse me, think about it. Hunter's laptop, it has material evidence, prostitution, drug use, gun crimes, tax crimes, financial information about all of Hunter's foreign lobbying. Did he register as under the FARA Act? I doubt it. And sketchy foreign business deals. How much money was he making from China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, and a dozen other countries? What about the profit sharing with the big guy, or giving half of his income to Pops, meaning Joey Biden, your president, and zero interest? The FBI has been in possession of that laptop since December 2019. According to John Solomon, he'll join us later, they verified the authenticity of that laptop in the spring of 2020. But federal investigators never asked about it. They never brought it up with Hunter or his attorney. Talk about a weaponized FBI and DOJ protecting the Biden syndicate. It is not a serious investigation, was never a serious investigation. And this is an effort to convince you that they have an appearance of fairness, all while protecting Joe Biden and his depraved family. And clearly, at this point, with very few exceptions, the federal bureaucracy is little more than an extension of the Democratic Party, comprised of Democrats working to elect and protect Democrats while targeting conservatives and anyone with the last name Trump or anyone associated with the last name Trump. And Congress and our next Republican president better clean house in a huge way without delay, or this politicized, weaponized federal government will spiral out of control even further. They are now more emboldened than ever because they've never been held accountable. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.